Welcome to the Remington podcast, where we take a deep dive into all things ammunition. I'm your host, Audrey Mays. Today we are live at NRA 2024, and we're sitting down today with Danny, the Global Director of Licensing and Cutlery, and Scott Storm, an outdoor enthusiast and a great painter.
Thank you.
Yeah, so happy to have you guys here today.
Good morning. Good to be here.
So, Scott, I just wanted to start off by asking you, how did you get into your love of wildlife and your love of the outdoors?
Sure. Well, I grew up in northern Minnesota, and our family hunted and fished all the time. And didn't do any painting. That was furthest from my mind. I went to school for architecture, but continued to hunt and fish. And once I finished up my architecture degree, went down to the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, and didn't have the access to the outdoors as much as I did. And so a friend of mine, his girlfriend, started painting, and I thought, well, that's kind of a neat deal. So I picked up a brush. It was my way to kind of return to the outdoors, so to speak. And my second painting, I entered in the Minnesota duck stamp competition. And back then, that was in '88, that was just riddled with outdoor painting royalty. There was 11 federal duck stamp winners in that contest, including Dan Smith and the Houghton brothers. Everybody knows about the Houghton brothers, and ended up taking second place. So funny part of the story was afterwards I went out with a couple friends, and we had a couple cocktails to kind of celebrate. Didn't know what I really did, and called my wife, then girlfriend, and said, I'm kind of thinking about making a career change. I'm thinking about painting. And there was a long pause on the line, and she said, "What? Fences, houses? What are you thinking of painting?" So I described to her what had just happened. She didn't even know I was painting as a hobby. So that's kind of what kicked it off. It gave me the inspiration to continue.
That's really awesome. I mean, I buy a duck stamp every year, even when I don't go duck hunting, because I collect them, right?
Oh,
and
nice.
I think a lot of people do now.
Yeah, they do.
What did you paint for your first,
First one was lesser Scot.
Okay, very cool.
So, yeah, and it just kicked off from there.
That's awesome.
Of course, the Houghton brothers were just getting into gear at that time, and I tease them. We've become good friends. I tease them that I probably taken second place to them more than anybody else in the country, because I was competing against three of them, so one of them was usually winning.
That's funny. And I mean, us at Remington, we're Arkansan. We love duck hunting. So I think you fit right in. And especially you painted our 2024 bullet knife poster.
Correct.
And it's a waterfowl scene, the waterfowler, which actually is right behind you.
Right.
So, Danny, can you tell us a little bit about what the bullet knife is? Why do we pair it with a painting and all of that?
Right. Yeah. So the bullet knife, a lot of people don't know it, but Remington, back in the early 1900s, Remington was actually the largest cutlery maker in the United States. They made hundreds and hundreds of knives, and over the years they've continued to make knives. Through different situations. They divested the cutlery business in the war times to produce more ammo for the war. But eventually Remington got back into the cutlery business and sourced it from various places. During that period, the one knife that really became a standout was basically a folding knife that was called the bullet knife. It basically had a nickel silver shield in it, made in the USA, 100% US components and things like that. And they really became a collectible over the years from the standpoint of knives. And actually the bullet knife became known very far and wide as America's most collectible knife, which was really cool. So in 1982, Remington actually decided with a marketing program that they wanted to launch a poster program, or make a poster, an exclusive poster each year that basically kind of highlighted the bullet knife being used in some type of precarious situation or whatever the case may be. So they went out and they hired an artist, a guy by the name of Larry Duke. And from 1982 to 1997, there was a bullet knife painting or a poster created each year in conjunction with the new introduction to the bullet knife. And they themselves became very collectible over the years. They're very desirable. And, of course, if you have the knife and the poster, you really got something to hang on to. So That went away after 1997, and it was actually our CEO, Jason Vanderbrink, that came to me and said, hey, I want to go out, I want to find an artist, I want to bring back the poster, I want to regenerate that whole program. The bullet knife continued, but the poster had not. So we went out and basically went on a search looking for an artist, and at the end of the day, ended up with Scot, who was a great fit for us, being a conservationist, a hunter, an outdoorsman. It was just a good fit from the word go, and he's got a safe full of Remington guns, so that worked out well.
Yeah,
Not enough, but getting there.
Made it an easy choice. So he fit right in very well. But the whole idea with bringing back the poster is creating that same situation. What we're trying to do is create a scenario. Scott is, a father, son, a generational thing. I pass it on, that moment that we've all been there, and whether it's a duck blind, a hunting blind, or out in the field, there's always those situations that we can relate to, and kind of draws us back into those good memories, so to speak.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, just looking at the waterfowler painting, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. I can tell that you duck hunt. We said only a duck hunter is going to know the struggles of your decoys getting tangled together.
Right,
and
right.
I mean, that's what's happening in the painting behind you is someone using the bullet knife to cut apart their decoys, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's very important. This whole series that we've been doing is about family. It's about the hunting tradition. It's about telling a story. For me being an artist, you have to have a story there that relates to somebody. And the biggest compliment I get is somebody that says, man, I've been there. I've seen that. That's happened to me. Danny and I, we throw around ideas on projects and stuff. And it's funny how we all have a bond with those sorts of things happening.
Yeah.
It's the little things that you remember. It's not the successful hunt necessarily. It's just the things that your son does or you do. Or
yeah. For me, it's usually the struggle.
Yeah.
I'll always tell the struggle before I tell the success. So yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, you can tell you're a conservationist, but where did that begin for you? What did you start hunting when you were a kid?
Well, I think it came from my dad. We spend a lot of time in the woods. It was so much fun growing up, and him teaching us how to track deer and what to look for, and looking for different waterfalling spots based on a particular type of species, and that sort of thing. So I can remember my dad giving me his single shot 410 when I was maybe 10 years old, and it was no padding on it. I don't even remember what model it was, but I remember I was small enough where it would just about kick me on my butt. So that was my biggest memory. I was so proud to hold a gun. I couldn't hit anything with it at that time, but I still can't. But
Still not a good shot.
Yeah, it was very young when I was
when you started
getting involved. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
Danny, how did you get into the outdoor space?
Oh man, I didn't have a choice. I grew up in a family in farm country in Pennsylvania, and my grandparents were hunters. My dad was a hunter. My mom was a hunter. My grandfather raced championship beagles. So when I was a little guy, I was getting up early on Saturday morning and going to beagle trials, chasing dogs around out in the woods. So, it's one of those things. It's that story in terms of just grew up with it. My entire family, it was a way of life. We spent a lot of time in the outdoors, and, the old adage of pass it on. My grandparents to my father, myself, and I have two kids, and they're both avid hunters and love the outdoors. So it's just, like I say, I didn't have a choice. I kind of fell into it. And then and my career, started out, after a period of time, I ended up in retail sporting goods, in big box sporting goods, where there was hunting and fishing and all that, and then had the opportunity to join Remington. So, it's kind of a cool story from the Remington perspective. My first new shotgun was a Remington. My mother gave my father a Remington for a wedding gift. My grandfather passed away. I inherited his Remington, and I mentioned when my son was on the way, we found out it was a boy. He had two Remingtons before he was born, and that's before I went to work for Remington. So, like I say, just kind of fell into it.
Oh yeah, it's a blood thing. I mean, like you guys said, it's very generational. I grew up. Again, my dad got me into hunting. I started me off on rabbits with a 22, and I shot Remington 22.
Yeah.
That's one of my first memories is those tin cans. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah.
With like that are just chock full of 22.
Yeah.
Mine has the bear and the man, the guy is trying to cross.
Yeah.
That's the one that I have.
Yeah.
It's,
Very
beat
cool.
up. But
It's a good point.
Yeah.
One of the things that's neat about that with the poster over the years, there's been a lot of other products, ammo tins that feature the painting, the bullet knife poster on it, and so on. So as we move forward, we'll see more and more of that again, and those became quite collectible as well. Got a few of them tucked away myself.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Sure.
even the one with the rabbit running away from you, I have that one too. So,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, Remington runs deep for sure, and we're all about passing it on. And I think that what you do with your paintings is really amazing because I mean, it will live forever. Have you ever thought about that? Like how?
Well, there's a few paintings I wish would not live forever. But yeah, it's. I think about that a little bit more because now my son and daughter have kind of become involved from the side. My son is in marketing and my daughter's in the film industry, and so they're helping me keep up to date with technology now. So they're looking at helping me promote it, and they're kind of taking a little bit of a charge. So that's where the thoughts about bringing the legacy or what are you going to leave behind for your kids to remember, and so that's definitely more and more of a thought.
Yeah, very important, very important. Well, that's awesome. What is something that has really, impacted you that you've painted? I personally have stalked your website, of course, and my favorites that you paint are the dogs. I think that you capture their expression really well, and especially the ones that are waiting to go, like in the cabin and stuff. And you can just see. I don't know how you do it, but you capture like their eagerness. Is there something that you constantly paint that really touches you?
There's a variety of things, but you brought up the dogs. That's kind of how I really got started in the print industry, becoming a wildlife artist. Is the series called Opening Day, and that's a yellow lab sitting in front of the cabin. I've got my grandfather's old shotgun in there, my dad's old first Mason decoys. So it's that nostalgia, trying to tell a story again, bring it generational. And then it's other things are like the federal duck stamp. That was a goal of mine to win, and so that it has a different positive memory for me for a different reason. It's not necessarily bringing in the generational thing. It's a competition. It's the waterfall that I love to hunt. It's the story behind the painting. I can remember where I sat there and where was the first time I won the federal was a pair of redheads, and I happened to sit on this pond that we nicknamed the hay bale slough. So that's what I painted in the background. That was my first redhead. It has a little bit different meaning, but meaning nonetheless.
That's awesome. I know exactly the dog painting you're talking about, and I, had no idea that that's your grandpa's shotgun in the picture.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
stuff.
And that was my first yellow lab, and he was that one of a kind dog. And he would go to shows when I first got in this business, and he'd sit in the booth with me, and he'd travel with me, and so he was just one of those, still to this day, those one in a lifetime dogs.
Yeah. I mean, Danny, you know all about that. You said your family raised beagles, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think the dogs are, and especially, when you get into duck hunting, when you get into even things like upland hunting and squirrel hunting and anything you can do with a hound. I don't think that people outside of that world understand the connection.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I think it's really great that you can.
Yeah, and especially as a hunter, I spent 1 year without a dog, and I'll never do that again because that's I would say 75, maybe even higher percentage of the fun is to watch them work.
Watching the dogs for sure. I've only been duck hunting with a good trained duck hunting dog twice in my life, and there's nothing like it. I mean, I wanted to shoot the ducks for the dog. I'm like, I don't mind it. I don't really need it for me. You know what I mean?
And you better hit them because if you don't, they sit and look at you like
what's the deal, right?
Yeah.
Can't you hit anything?
They give you more trouble than the guy with you in the blind when you miss.
Right.
So that's really great. Danny, how long have you been with Remington?
I'm getting close to 27 years with Remington now.
dang.
So, yeah, long time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How has your journey been?
It's been ups and downs, obviously, over the years, but all in all, very good. It's really cool to be associated with something that's such a passion for you. You know, I talk about if I get 4 weeks vacation a year, 3 of them I'm spending in a tree stand or a duck blind or something like that. And I've got to dedicate that other one to a family vacation to keep peace. But at the end of the day, you know, being associated with something you love to do and is your passion is pretty cool from that perspective. So I would tell you it's been very good. The journey overall has been very good from being a part of Remington in the outdoor industry.
Yeah, that's great. You know, I've been with Remington a really short time, but so far it's been fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it runs deep. And so I'm with you every single day that I'm off. I'm usually hunting.
Yeah.
I get, you know, I'll save a week for the beach.
Got to do it.
And
Yeah.
that's about it. But yeah. Scott, something really funny that you said earlier is that you were an architecture major. Me too.
Is that right?
That is my undergrad
Nice.
degree is architecture.
Yeah.
So, hey guys, you want to be in the outdoor industry? Go get your degree in architecture.
It'll push you into it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
You said that one of your passions is wildlife conservation. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you're involved in that?
Well, I belong to just about every conservation group out there. And so the way I get involved is I do a lot of projects that go for auction, say like a Ducks Unlimited or Pheasants Forever or are the biggest two that I probably have been with. I've been probably over 20 years where through the donation of prints or original paintings, those go directly towards raising funds for whether it's land or political end of things,
Right.
and you name it. So
Yeah.
and then I also just travel. I like to see, you know, I've gone up to the Dakotas when they do duck counts and brought that was one of our trips. That talked them into a family trip there, and they loved it, you know,
Yeah.
doing stuff like that just to help educate. And I, kind of a funny story, if we have time, I was a football coach, a wrestling coach, and I was part of starting a project for 5th and 6th grade tackle football. But I would always listen to the parents, and they're always complaining about how we never had time because we had games on the weekends. And so as a coach, I stopped a couple of weekends for like a youth hunt or opening a duck hunting so that there's no excuses. We have to you have an opportunity to bring your kids out hunting. Well, we also, as a group of a couple dads, would bring our kids plus a couple other kids that didn't have opportunities. We'd go to North Dakota and duck hunt. And over the years, I think we had 21 different kids that did this, and every single 21 of those kids that we brought are still avid duck hunters. Their parents didn't hunt, but we turned them into the right side, you know. So that's what it's all about is helping people get involved and just showing a passion and
keeping it alive. You have to do it.
Yeah.
And you know, something you didn't mention, but just being a hunter makes you a conservationist.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, all of that money in tags and licenses and all of that goes to
Absolutely.
wildlife
Well,
conservation.
that's where, you know, I think people that aren't hunters don't understand that the hunters are the biggest contributors to making sure that we have our wildlife and our lands and clean waters and things. I mean, that's where a lot of the money goes.
Yeah.
You know, Andre, I would add some of the things that Scott's talking about and what he did, his work in conservation, you know, whether it's Delta waterfowl, DU, Rocky Mountain elk, Pheasants Forever, all those things that are important to us. When I was out interviewing artists, there are a lot of talented people out there, obviously, in terms of that, but that was all part of the decision. Like I say, when you hear Scott, you know, his passion, his motive, what he's done, being a part of the industry, it was a natural fit. It made the decision pretty easy that he was the right guy for, you know, what we were looking to accomplish. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. I mean, bleed green, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I feel like the bullet knife is such an iconic part of Remington, and I'm so happy that it's back, and I'm so happy you brought back the tradition of the painting.
Well, I'm excited about what's the images that are to come.
Yeah, that's coming up. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it, guys. Remington is on the rise. Like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to share this podcast with your hunting or shooting buddies. If you have any questions or you have a topic you'd like us to talk about, or you want to reach out to these guys, you can email us at podcast@remington.com. Thanks for listening.